Hello everyone, welcome back to Books with Genghis Khan. I'm Ben, and today I have for you my mid-month check-in where I'm going to just gush about all of my reads over the first 2 weeks of August. It's been a great month so far, and I started with a return to a long-running series that I have been just rushing through over the past year because I've been loving it so much, and that is book 20 of the Richard Sharpe historical fiction series by Bernard Cornwell, Sharpe's Waterloo, the real climax to the entire Napoleonic Wars, and this did not disappoint. I have never studied this battle before, never really learned about it. I had no clue how it was going to play out, and it was just insanely dramatic and suspenseful, and the perfect battle to novelize, I think. This was one of the bloodiest battles and days that humanity had ever seen up to that point in a war, and just a really, really intense battle, and that Cornwell really pulled back from the fictionalized plots. There were a little bit of fictionalized tension with Sharpe and some characters. That's standard fare for the series, but there was a lot less of that than usual. It was almost fully focused on the battle, and in that sense, this is one of the most standalone of the entire series. If you don't think you really want to dive into this really long-running historical fiction series and care about following Sharpe from the very beginning of the series in India all the way to the end of the Napoleonic Wars, then you can just jump in and try it out here. And you would be spoiled on sort of a little bit of the character stuff around Sharpe and who's around him. And so if you went back into previous books, you might recognize by, who's absent from this one, maybe who had died along the way, or just be spoiled on Sharpe's journey. But it stands alone really well. So if you're at all interested in this battle, in experiencing just visceral battlefield warfare in the Napoleonic era with artillery and cavalry and the infantries with their muskets and rifles, it is just so immersive the way Cornwell writes battle scenes. You're just there. It's like being there virtual reality, where you're just getting all the different sensory details from Cornwell about what it's like on this battlefield, and it's overwhelming to be there with the noise and the blood and gore everywhere, and the intensity of just these charges and resisting the charges and then charging yourself, and just the randomness of where all the artillery is falling at any given moment. Oh man, it was so dramatic, and you got a sense too of how brilliant the British general, Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley, was, and how he completely outsmarted Napoleon on this over the course of these few days, and especially on the day of the Battle of Waterloo, where Napoleon was just not displaying any of his supposed strategic genius, and just completely got outsmarted. So it was interesting to see that all play out, and I was so invested in that battle, and just you only get it from certain POVs, mostly through Sharpe's POV. You see just corners of the battle, and not the whole picture and what led up to it and things that are going on kind of outside that main battlefield. And so I dived into Bernard Cornwell's nonfiction account of the battle, Waterloo, which he wrote, I think, 15 years after he wrote the novelized book. But I think he did a ton of research when he was writing that original book, and probably read a lot more first-hand accounts, because there are a lot that came out of this battle. And I found myself reliving the battle. What was so fun for me was that a lot of the really important moments from the battle from the novel came back and were narrated in this book. And this book is nonfiction. It was more distanced. It doesn't have as much voice and personality to it. But when I was going through this nonfiction book, I was able to really imagine being there through the character's eyes. And so the novel really enhanced my journey through the nonfiction account of the battle. And you learn about kind of what was going on with the Prussians, and how Napoleon and the French army just completely blundered in dealing with the Prussian army, and how that contributed to the Prussians being able to come to Wellington's aid and really corner Napoleon from two sides. This is one of the most readable nonfiction history books I've ever read. I studied a lot of history in college, and I wish most of the nonfiction books were as just engaging as this one was. It just mixed in quotes from memoirs really well, but just most of the time was just narrating the story so clearly and in such a fast-paced, interesting way. So just the combination of these two books had me utterly engrossed in the first part of this month, where now I know how the Napoleonic Wars ended with a major bang. After Waterloo, I was finally able to read the second short story in this little story collection, Sharpe's Christmas. It has just 2 short stories in there. Probably only for Sharpe completionists is this necessary, but it was a really tense story that I really enjoyed. So there's only 3 Sharpe short stories, and then the 22 novels with maybe a 23rd coming sometime later this year or next year. So I'm nearing the end, and it has been a fantastic journey. Also, kudos to Rupert Farley. I listened to a lot of the novel Sharpe's Waterloo on audio, and he's just continues to be maybe my favorite audiobook narrator. After my little foray into historical fiction, I came back to fantasy with To Speak with Elders by Mike Mullman. That is the book 2 in the Protectors of Brittany series, the sequel novel to Becoming a Druid. And this just continued my nice streak with this series. I've enjoyed all 3 books, including the kind of novella and short story collection, Sins and Sorrows, that came between the novels. And this continues Grami's main storyline as the only POV character, well, until the epilogue, when we get, I think, a preview of who the next main POV character is going to be in the series. And this is just such a quirky, just fun kind of fantasy series that I can safely say now, 3 books in, is just heavily kind of quest fantasy. These characters and Grami and some of the side characters are just basically continually sent on various quests that they have to fulfill by the Druid Order to accomplish certain important tasks. And we are just traveling around getting an expansion of the world building, which was really cool to see, meeting different creatures, different long-lived kind of human characters who are quite interesting. And I just really enjoy spending time with Grami. I did a lot on audio again, and the narrator, James Meunier, just fantastic at voicing Grami. I just really enjoy his overall narration and the voices he does for all different characters. And yeah, as you can see on the cover, we meet some centaurs. There's other interesting magical creatures we will meet in this book as well. The animal transformation magic really takes center stage in this book, which really has me excited because I love that. Just all of the strategic and fun transformations that Grami and his companions are needing to do throughout to travel more easily, to get out of danger, to solve problems. Yeah, they make great use of that magic here. And I think this book, it's not too much of a spoiler to say that a side character from book 1, Fiegel, sticks around and stays around on the page as Grami's companion. That's Grami's nephew. And Fiegel becomes more of a main character who's almost always around. And I really enjoyed the dynamic between Grami and Fiegel. This really nice kind of mentor-mentee, uncle-nephew relationship they have going. They have a great rapport between them. Fiegel has kind of telepathy abilities, and that allows him and Grami to communicate that way. And just, you never know exactly if Fiegel is manipulating anyone or himself. And so Grami's always wondering, like, oh, is Fiegel manipulating me right now into thinking this or to having this emotion? That makes for just a continually intriguing time as we spend time with those two. And so, yeah, I'm having fun with this series, and I am in great suspense to see what happens. There's some high-stakes stuff that goes on here, and wondering now that I have more of a sense for the overarching series plot, I'm just so intrigued to see it all play out, because it seems like some very large world kind of conflicts are coming to a head, and the kind of first few books have been leading up to it and setting things up, and I think there might be some really explosive books to come. I knew soon that I'd be diving into some more heavy fantasy with Golden Fool, so I wanted to fit in some different changes of pace, and so I went to my Adrian Tchaikovsky shelf and took down one that I've been really excited to try for a while, and that is Dogs of War, and I ended up loving this. It was the kind of scintillating read where from the first page to the very end, I was just so tense, so invested in everything that was happening. It was one of those easy 5-star reads. And it is book 1 of a duology, so it stands alone very well. I have no clue what the sequel, Bearhead, could really be up to, and so I'm so intrigued to try the sequel. But this is one that's, I think, doesn't have too high of a profile, but man, I wish more people would read it. This is near future, very realistic, sort of hard sci-fi, where it's taking place on Earth, and it's all about the kind of bio-enhanced animals that corporations and governments have created to wage war more effectively. And the main character, Rex, is a war dog, essentially, and he's verbal. He has, we're in his POV, he has verbal thoughts, he can speak to other characters around him, and he presents a terrifying image because he's a massive dog. He is basically bulletproof and has super senses, is great at controlling the guns that are strapped onto his back, just a perfect warrior and soldier, and he is being directed by an absolutely psychopathic war criminal to basically kill civilians and government rebels in this kind of anarchist portion of Mexico in the start of this novel. And we're with Rex, and all he wants to be is a good dog. He just wants to be good, do good, and get along with the other animals in his squad and please his human master, who he doesn't know is evil and psychopathic. And one of the great joys of the book is just as the book goes along, Rex is becoming more aware of the world and asking some tough kind of ethical questions to himself and growing and just being conflicted about, doing what his master's telling him to do versus what's right, and can he decide on his own what's right, is just an absurdly compelling POV. And the narrator, too, for Rex, there are different narrators for different POVs in this, but Nathan Osgood, who's the narrator for Rex, was just incredible. He does not have too many audiobook credits to his name. He's a kind of stage and screen actor who does, I guess, few audiobooks. He has such a deep, low, resonant, raspy voice. It is just so pitch perfect for Rex. It was just captivating. And there are themes here about basically how human society treats maybe non-human creatures, or even any humans or animals that have been modified. And if you are an intelligent, emotional being, but are not traditionally human, what's your place in society? What rights do you have? And those themes get explored in a really interesting way in this book. So it does have a feel of almost classic sci-fi, where we are exploring some interesting future themes that might be relevant to our world now or soon. And so it has that going for it. Just really engaging character work. The plotting was suspenseful. Just no complaints. Tchaikovsky does it again for me with another perfect book. All right, so that's what I've been reading. I am planning to try out another Spiffbo 9 entry. That is The Crystal Gunslinger by Oliver Laws. And I had that on ebook, and I just got my first ever Kindle in this very sharp, dark blue color. And so I don't have to read ebooks on my phone or my computer anymore, which I hate. So I'm going to give, I think, my Kindle its first try with that ebook. And then while I do that on the Kindle, I'm planning to just listen to the next Sharpe book. I have 2 more Sharpe novels that are out. This is book number 21, Sharpe's Assassin, the most recent release by Cornwell 2 years ago. So after he finished up all of the Last Kingdom Saxon Tales books, he returned to the Sharpe world. And this book, I didn't realize, it's set directly after the Battle of Waterloo ends. So we pick up right after that battle. And man, just Cornwell did not lose his touch. And just it's impactful from the very first moments. And man, I am going to miss going on new adventures with Sharpe. And then once I get through those 2 pretty short reads, the end of the month should be all about book 2 of the Tawny Man trilogy, Golden Fool by Robin Hobb. So yeah, that is a little bit beefier than Fool's Errand, and I imagine it's a bit dramatic. It's probably a little slower. That's Robin Hobb things go. And so that might take a little while. But if I get through those 3 by the end of the month, I'll be very happy. So yeah, let me know anything you've been loving reading over the past couple weeks. Excited about trying any of these books that I just read. And yeah, I'll catch you later.